Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports. Now, before we get into our second segment of today's show, I do want to remind you guys yet again that if you do feel so inclined, please consider leaving a tip or donation at the link gsmc.cloud. It's greatly appreciated by all involved at the network, especially both me and my fellow podcasters. You can also leave any questions, comments, or concerns about the show, and they will be answered and addressed at the beginning of the next episode. Without further ado, let's jump right into the first of one of many prop bet segments for today's show. And let's start off with perhaps the easiest team to bet on in any sport, really, in recent memory, the Kansas City Chiefs. Oops, wrong team. The Kansas City Chiefs, if you really think about it, have become so easy to bet on, mainly due to their almost laughable dominance. No matter what situation they're in, you always feel like they're going to overcome it. Last year we saw it especially. A lot of people perhaps did not place bets on the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl or the AFC as often as they should have. But you can never doubt Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. As long as those two guys are together, the Chiefs are always the safest bet in all of sports, in my humble opinion. And thinking about this year, right, and how the landscape of the AFC has changed, I really think the Chiefs' streak of positive betting odds and positive betting numbers will continue. Because when I look at the AFC, and I look at the team that you often consider at the top, there's really no one, maybe outside of Houston, that I'm really scared of in every department as Chiefs. I look at the Bills. They lose to Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. They don't really have a trusted number one yet. Keon Coleman might be, but he's just a rookie. I look at the Texans. I look at the dynamic in the wide receiver room. How is Stephon Diggs going to fit into a wide receiver room that already seemed set? I look at, say, the Jags, who are also going to be competing in the AFC South. I don't really like the receiving room at all outside of Evan Engram. I look at, say, who would be a good the Ravens. How does the dynamic in the running back room change? How do you incorporate Derrick Henry into this offense? I look at the Browns. Deshaun Watson's perhaps the biggest question mark amongst all the QBs in the AFC for a contending team. And so, I think that out of all the teams in the AFC, even though it feels weird to say, the Chiefs have perhaps the least questions. And thinking about that dynamic, and thinking about how the betting market will try and be as volatile as ever, to dissuade people from the notion that the Chiefs will always be there, I think there's no safer option than to consider the Chiefs, because if you don't, then that's when bad things happen. So to start it off, let's talk about the Chiefs winning both the AFC and the Super Bowl at plus 600. The reason why I believe that this double kind of bet is perhaps the best one to make. Consider the fact that of all the contenders that I talked about, the Chiefs play in the easiest division. They truly expect that in those two games against each of their divisional opponents, they could easily come away with 6 wins. Not many other teams can say that in the AFC. Not many teams can think that they have 6 easy wins within their own division. Look at the AFC North. It's the deepest division in all of football right now. Look at the AFC East. Who knows if the Bills will even win this division? The AFC West is always the Chiefs to lose. Perhaps the Chargers could challenge because Jim Harbaugh's there now. Perhaps the Raiders in a couple of years will be talented enough in the Antonio Pierce era to challenge as well. When I think about the Chiefs, there's no easier path within their own division, because that's the most important games that teams tend to focus on, than the Kansas City Chiefs right now. And in terms of the Super Bowl, if they get to the Super Bowl, there's a huge chance they're facing one out of 5 teams that could claim to be the NFC's best, because no one truly knows how cemented the NFC is. Everyone's talking about, the Lions are separating themselves from the pack. The Eagles will be back with Saquon on their team. The Packers could be a surprise. The Cowboys, maybe this is their year. But no one has as cemented a mindset surrounding the NFC as they do in the AFC. Because in the AFC, you're looking at only 1 or 2 teams in all reality who are true Super Bowl contenders. The rest are just playoff contenders. But the AFC is certainly harder than the NFC, if you consider that. If we look last year, the Chiefs certainly had a lot of luck on their path to the Super Bowl. They were able to play the Dolphins at home in a cold temperature setting for Tua. And on the road against the Ravens, they ultimately relied a lot on the Ravens' mistakes. But at the end of the day, this Chiefs team is so much better than where they were last year. They added Marquise Brown, they added Xavier Ward, they added the speed that they wanted in this lineup. And they still have Travis Kelce, and they still have one of the most underrated defensive setups in the league, with one of the most underrated defensive coordinators in the league. So it would almost seem foolish to not at least consider the Kansas City Chiefs as a team to look out for. Now let's talk about some players. Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes. As it stands right now, the money line on his bet to win MVP is at plus 475. There are several others around him who have better odds. When I think about a player, right, who truly is the most valuable player, and how it will carry over into next season especially, now that it seems as if he has better options than ever at his disposal, it's Patrick Mahomes. Without Patrick Mahomes last year, the Kansas City Chiefs would never have gotten to the Super Bowl. That's how valuable of a player Patrick Mahomes is. A lot of people forget it just because he's become such a name in the NFL, and the brand that he's created around him, the noise that he's created around him. Everyone's starting to truly get to understand him as potentially the next great of the game. I think that Patrick Mahomes really, in some departments, is a little bit undervalued. And it's weird to say that because when you think of Patrick Mahomes, you immediately think of one of the biggest stars in the NFL. But consider what happened last year. There was so much frustration and tension with how his wide receivers were performing that nobody thought that even Patrick Mahomes would pull them out of the morass. Going into the postseason, nobody expected the Chiefs to really do anything outside of maybe beating the Dolphins. They all expected Baltimore to win it. But doubting Patrick Mahomes when he's at his best. This season he'll have much less doubts, much better team at least on paper, and a chance to do something that will truly cement the argument that perhaps Patrick Mahomes is the next GOAT that we're seeing before our eyes. And so, not many people going into this campaign can say that. Lamar definitely can't say it because he's been abysmal in the postseason. Josh Allen can't say that. He's not beating Mahomes. Joe Burrow can't even say that because even though he did beat Mahomes, he hasn't won as many Super Bowls as him. So, in the grand scheme of things, if we're talking about value picks both in betting and in terms of the player we're talking about, then Patrick Mahomes fits that bill. And so, even though you might be skeptical, well, why can't someone else win the MVP? There's so many different position groups now that are getting stronger, and so many different players that are getting stronger especially, that can fit the bill of an MVP. Well, Patrick Mahomes has fit that bill in each and every single season he's been in the league, and here's why. I don't think many other quarterbacks could make that system work as well as Patrick Mahomes. I think you could put certain quarterbacks in that you could call like system QBs, for example, like Sam Darnold or some other, who can still operate the offense, but not as well as Mahomes does it, because there's really no true answer for how to defend his skill set. There really isn't. You can beat him, but just know that it was because your team put together a Herculean effort. Patrick Mahomes, at the end of the day, just holds so much weight that it would be even more foolish to at least not consider him when you're making these bets in this MVP race than for the Chiefs to win the AFC or Super Bowl. And now lastly, let's talk about that Week 1 game. Perhaps the best one on the entire slate. The rematch of the AFC Championship between them and the Ravens. And when you think about these two teams, and you think about what this game will mean come the playoffs if they meet again, this game is perhaps more important than any Week 1 game in recent memory, because the Ravens want to dispel the notion that they can't show up against big teams or in big-time moments. And the Chiefs want to A, show their new-look offense, and B, truly prove that their early season struggles last year weren't a fluke. Because if the Chiefs are a consistent team throughout the entirety of the year, there's no one truly stopping them. And so I think this game will truly be a testament of how both of these teams will progress. I've taken the over on this game. It's at 46.5 points. Because both teams are going to want to prove a point. One way or another. Both teams have drastically changed their offenses as well. So we're going to be seeing new looks. And at the end of the day, these two teams, but especially the Chiefs, have something to prove. That their dominance can be continued for quite some time. And because of that, I think that you should be rushing to where you bet, sportsbooks everywhere, to pick the Chiefs every single time until the day Patrick Mahomes retires. That's as simple as that. But coming next, we have their AFC West rival in the Los Angeles Chargers, who also have a new look to them as well, and we can see if that will prove fruitful for them after the break.